I thought I'd start off here by just showing the site I created for you. I decided to just have a site for you because we'll have some hike notes and other stuff in there, and it's connected to you. This is just Obsidian, right? And so you can see that within the this page, I've created a bunch of links for you. Um, and then I'll show you what the final result looks like as well, right? So I'll skip past that real quick. And here's the final result of the output, which is, the same site that's basically navigable in a very similar way. It's got this, hard to guess URL here, and it's hosted on a thing called MacNodes, which is, just a domain that I own. But I'm calling this thing Meadow actually, and so I'll need to get some sort of URL for that at some point. But anyhow, so you can see that it outputs essentially the same thing as the as whatever happens to be inside of Obsidian, which is really nice for me because I can just take all of my notes and put them in Obsidian and densely link them, and it ends up creating a site. The problem with the densely linked stuff, though, is that some of the stuff that I densely link, I don't have arbitrary distinctions between things in my notes, and so it's possible that when I'm talking about meta context here, it might go way out into other stuff, for example, that has nothing to do with our discussions, and maybe I wouldn't want to link to those other things, and so what Meadow does is makes it easy for me to control that stuff. So let's talk about Meadow, right? So if I go back here to the site for Kevin Kell, basically I start with a page here, and this is what Meadow looks like, right? So in Meadow, I say that I want to. I have, you can have a number of sites, but this one is the site for Kevin Kell, right? And so I start off with just a relatively low graph depth here, and I'll expand it in a second. But here you can see the same things, right? There's the person Kevin Kell, there's the hike, and then there's the links that come out from that are sort of at the third level there. And it also shows up in a list view here too, where, starting from distance zero and then goes through these things. Um, and you can, do searching in the stuff, and it also kind of works like that too. Um, like Kevin. Okay, so that's reasonably interesting. But let's go bigger. Let's increase to the depth to 4 here, and I'll set it, and then it basically traverses all of Obsidian and finds what the graph now looks like. And you can see that, things get interesting here, right? So like how I use my note processing system is links to a bunch of things. Now the problem is that I'm very concerned about accidentally publishing sensitive stuff because everything links to everything in my notes. And so uh, so one thing I have is the ability to actually specify that something is sensitive. So we'll go back to Obsidian here real quick and I'll show you that. So for example, you're sensitive because I don't want to accidentally publish your page to other graphs, right? And so one of the things is a property for sgpub, which was an old name for this. I'll update that to be Meadow and sensitive. So if that's there, what happens is that uh, it will show up as sensitive notes. And so actually, this is by default, this is turned on. I just didn't have it turned on because I didn't want to talk about it right at the beginning. Um, so with these sensitive notes, it's actually kind of interesting. So you can see that everything I have is tracked right now. But when you start building a site, nothing is tracked. And so I'll go ahead and untrack a couple notes to show you what that looks like. So if I start off, I'll just uh, I'll just start off with these sensitive nodes, right? And so I'll just select them and I'll just untrack all of them, or I'll untrack a couple of them. Okay, so now those guys are untracked, and so then we'll unsolo it and everything shows back up again. Okay, so if I look at untracked nodes now, you can see that there's two nodes that are not tracked, and if I solo them, you can see that or actually, I guess there's three of them. So I can deselect those and select all these guys. And yeah, there's a set of them. I can either track them individually or I can track everything that's selected. And that's pretty easy. And then I can save the configuration. There's a bug, some kind of a bug. Oh, yeah, that's a bug that I'll need to fix. Once I've made those changes, I can save the configuration, and then I can just unsolo it, and everything will show back up again, and I can deselect everything. So the idea with these guys, right, that are sensitive is if I untrack them, uh, they remain sensitive. Oh, interesting. Okay, that's a bug too. Let's see what happened there. Oh, it just goes back to being tracked immediately. Okay, so I've got a little bug. Um, but the idea with those is that when you're doing sort of bulk uh, tracking of pages, essentially, like I want to not publish anything unless the nodes are tracked, right? So that you don't accidentally publish things that you shouldn't have published. And so people have to track them. So if the things are sensitive, they don't they won't be bulk they can't be bulk added by hitting the track all selected. Uh, so maybe I could show you that in a different thing. So we have a meadow test data one, right? And if I solo the sensitive, so if I so all the untracked nodes, that's one of the untracked nodes. Okay, so if I say, select all the visible untracked nodes, and I try to, track all the selected ones, it says, hey, you can't track all of them because some of them are sensitive. So you can't sort of accidentally track a sensitive thing. So you can deselect the sensitive nodes like this, and now that's not selected anymore. And then you can just track everything like that. And then if you uh, now, okay, so let's say I save that, right? Now that means that whenever I come back to, let's say I go away and I come back to something like this, and I want to see what are the things that I haven't considered yet, and I look at the untracked nodes. Well, there's not many untracked nodes here, right? There's one down here at the end, and this one suffers from the same bug as the other one, which is it's a duplicate page, and it looks like I'm not getting tracking right. But um, I'll fix that bug, and that won't be a problem in the future. Uh, but generally speaking, if your underlying graph changes, then you'll see the changes here because there'll be the new nodes that have been added to the graph will be untracked nodes. Um, and there's a lot of other stuff in here too. So I guess we'll go back to the site that we are publishing for you. Um, right now the depth is the same for everything here. And we start here with a depth of 4, and then it goes, the remaining depth here is like there's 4 remaining, 3 remaining, and then it goes on here to 2 remaining, 1 remaining, and then 0 remaining. And that's why it doesn't go any further than this. And so this is sort of our frontier. Um, but it's possible that one of these things in the frontier is just so interesting, right? That you really want to expand beyond it, and so um, uh, it's possible to do that by uh, setting the depth for that. Now, I should probably have a thing that shows that it's 0 remaining, but I could set its own depth, saying that I want to be able to go beyond it by 2, and that should load this. Oh, it's not working quite right here. Let me reload this and see if it works. It doesn't look like it did it. I mean, I guess it's possible there's nothing beyond there, but let's try it again and see. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably broken too. It's, yeah. Um, and you can also say whether you want the inlinks to come in to allow for inlinks, or if you just want to traverse the graph in the outlink direction only. So anyhow, I mean, like if I come back to like what I really want to be able to do, I just want to be able to publish parts of my notes and feel confident that I'm not publishing sensitive stuff. And so this is what I have so far for that. Oh, I didn't show the traversal. You can also traverse from specific places, right? So like if I want to traverse from here instead, I can show it just sort of lets you focus in on something a little bit better. So here we're traversing from that spot instead. And so here it's now the top. And then it allows you to sort of hone in on a specific thing a little bit better. Like, for example, I could traverse from here instead, and that will, you know, make it a little bit easier to see everything. It also makes it easier to select stuff specifically related to a particular node, and then you can do all the selection stuff, like track all of them or blacklist them or whatever, that type of thing. Anyhow, lots of stuff. I Right now it doesn't connect to the back end super well, which is why I have these three screens. So this now creates configuration, and it's all pretty fancy. It's JavaScript. It's actually TypeScript, and the older version of the site that actually generates the HTML is all written in Python. And you can see, I'll show you what the old UI looks like. Uh, this is why it took me a while to publish these notes, is because I basically had to build this thing because I didn't feel like using this interface anymore. This is the bad old interface where you had to, do things here instead, adding them, and there's no sort of graph showing or anything like that. Um, so the thought is that I'll use AI to slowly but surely move portions of the back end that actually does the web publishing into the TypeScript front end as well. So everything will be TypeScript, which I found is pretty helpful for AI coding, actually. AI coding seems to be a little bit better if everything is uniformly written. It's also just easier for, maintenance to have. Well, I know you're not a programmer, so I won't say too much, but like strong typing is nice and beneficial. Oh, I didn't talk about the AI off-topic stuff here either. So the idea with AI off-topic, which doesn't really work right now, but is kind of interesting, is essentially, when you load the graph and increase the size of the graph, it takes each of the nodes in the graph and it uses a local LLM, so a private LLM, to decide whether the node is off topic or not. And so these filters have sort of a two pass uh, it's a two pass thing, right? Where they first do selection and then they will take some action based on that selection. So you can see in this case, if AI identifies things as off topic, well, it hasn't identified any of them as off topic here, but if it identifies them as off topic, first it'll highlight them, kind of in the same way that everything else is highlighted. So I have this sort of multi circles around something highlighting so that we can have lots of different highlights. I seem to, I feel like I like that pretty well. So it'll do the highlighting, but it'll also mark it as sensitive as well. And the reason why you mark it as sensitive is if AI thinks it's off topic, then maybe you shouldn't be publishing it in the graph, right? And so it's the same thing as these things that are marked sensitive that block you from accidentally bulk tracking it and publishing it. So it again sort of fits into that design principle of not wanting to of wanting people to be confident that they won't accidentally be publishing sensitive stuff from their notes. Um, all right, I'll leave it at that. There's a lot more to talk about, but this will give us something to talk about on our hike, and I'll go ahead and share the site with you as well. Okay.